I've been following hockey for more than 40 years now. During that time, I believe Ric Charlesworth has been the individual that has had the most influence on the modern game. Rick was recognised as one of the best players in the world, if not the best, during his playing career. In his time as coach, he's led both the women's team and men's team to World Cup glory. In fact, his record of titles is just too many to mention. In my opinion, Rick has been the greatest coach in the modern era. Unfortunately, Rick has just retired. During the last year, I've interviewed Rick together with players, coaches and officials from all parts of the game. A final tribute to the great man himself.
England going, and they've started rather... stick work by Ric Charlesworth, rising 34.
Ric Charlesworth is retiring after the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
What difference has he made to hockey?
I think the contribution of Ricky was fantastic in the hockey. I think they innovate a lot of things, and he was really the leader of all the innovations. Many coaches behind him, he was following their ideas. And the way, for example, they moved the women's team from Australia, I think it was a fantastic leadership for the rest of the world. For that you have a really big gratitude, and for sure the FIH will recognize that in time to Rick.
Leandro, you've been a coach for a long time. What does it mean to be a coach?
Well, I think the coach hopefully creates an environment of learning for your team. You oversee that process. You're a significant factor in initiating it, driving and pushing it. And I think you have to set a standard for your players that is high enough to push them to keep developing, keep lifting the bar. And so most of the players in my team, in my opinion, I don't think they know how good they can be.
Okay.
Part of my role is to stretch them to realise what is their potential, which they may not realise.
Okay. You seem to be a very driven individual. I watch you on the training grounds, and you're intense the whole time. How do you stay so fresh when you've been around the game for so long?
Well, I think you have to be fresh and vital, and you have to have a tone and energy about you.
Yes.
That's important for the players. I think that's the way I played hockey. That's the way I played sport. That's my nature, and so it's important that every coach is true to what is their nature. And for me, that was my way of playing. I believe that in order to make things happen on the field, you need a certain intensity and the dynamism about what happens. Otherwise, it's pretty bland.
Yeah.
You don't create much. You know, it's passive, and so the game just happens. You know, I think you have to try and push the game forward, make a difference, change things. You actually don't score goals in hockey by just sitting back waiting.
Yeah.
You have to actually take risks, and you have to calculate those risks.
Okay. You fundamentally changed the women's game through the Hockeyroos, and a big part of that was player selection. You've also changed the Kookaburras, because now you're using smaller players as fullbacks, and you just seem to have a different way of looking at the game and bringing out these extra characteristics out of players which previously nobody seemed to think about.
I don't know. I think the game continually evolves. It's changed dramatically. In the 20 years I've been coaching now. When I first started with the Hockeyroos, we did a range of things which seemed quite different, but there was a couple of rule changes. There was interchange and offside, which significantly changed the game during that period of time. But I think we embraced those things earlier. We did them better. We pushed them further than other teams, and we certainly what has happened in hockey, even since I was playing in the 70s, 80s, 90s, that players had to become more undifferentiated, more flexible, more able, more all-round, and that's continued. So all around the field now you need people with skill. You know, forwards tackle very well now. There was a time in the 50s where they hardly worried about tackling if you were a forward, and the fullback was the big guy who just bashed the ball out the other end. It can't be anymore. No. And so all around the field you need undifferentiated players who can do all the skills, play on both sides of the body, both sides of the field. That's the big shift that's occurred over the time, and it's continuing to occur in the game. And you better be on board with that, or else you get left behind.
Okay. In Australia we see different sides of players. Tall guys, small guys, heavy guys. It's like the whole range. People like Korea, I know the Koreans are all basically a similar size of people, but in other teams you don't seem to get quite such a variation, to my mind anyway. When you're looking at the attributes of a player, if you were to pick the 3 top attributes in selecting a player, what would those 3 things, or 3 key things be that you're looking at in a particular player?
You got to be wary. I mean, I think, like for instance, I think speed is important. Yet there are players who can succeed without speed, but they have to have exceptional ball control, really lovely passing, other things. And you can't be immobile.
Yes.
But you can have. But I think traditionally I think you'd say speed's a pretty critical element. But it can be balanced against the aerobic capacity, strength, and maybe your ability to read the play and get into position early and to make passing. So there's a physical element to it. The actual skills of the game, ability to reproduce perfectly every time, the basics or the fundamentals, the essentials of the game is a critical thing. And then you want people who have, if you like, that competitive edge to them. The strength to play in any situation, the ability to compete. Yeah. So, ability to compete, your skill in the game, and your ability to understand the game and know where you are at any moment of the game and where the ball ought to go. And then the physical attributes that are probably important to the 3 things.
Okay. If you had 2 players, one is naturally gifted and maintains a level, but really never pushes themselves to that last 5%. You've got another player who is not so naturally gifted, but gives 100% all of the time, and is always striving to give their 100% and be their best. Which of those 2 would you choose?
Well, I think it depends on. Sometimes in some situations you go for one. If you've got if that extra guy is the guy who you want to provide a bit of spice, a bit of difference. If he's an elusive striker, then maybe you go for him. If you're looking to solidify your defence, then you go for the other guy perhaps. But both of those things can be important. In the end, though, sometimes the guy who got there easy with lots of natural ability doesn't know how to work, and you need that. So, depending on the balance of your team, you need a range of people who can provide different things. Sometimes the thing that adds a gloss to your team is that special something, but sometimes it's enigmatic. Other times you want to solidify with, we've got a bit of that. We need some backbone. So it might depend on the situation with other players of the team, the rest of the team, and how the whole thing looks.
Okay. Looks very likely this would be your last Hockey World Cup as a coach at this stage.
Yes.
Definitely.
Not likely, definitely.
Obviously, you would dearly love Australia to come out as a winner. Are you perhaps a bit more apprehensive this time around, looking forward?
Any big tournament, you're apprehensive. I believe we have a team. I can say with confidence they can win the thing. But whether or not you do, there's maybe a half dozen teams that could win the thing. So you have to actually deliver in those 2 weeks. And sometimes teams win a tournament just by playing well for a few days. You've got to get to the main game. And so my aim is always in any tournament to get to the main game. And we have to deliver. My time with the Kookaburras, we got to the main game in every tournament we played. Big tournaments we missed out once.
you've brought a few innovations into the game, or you've certainly been part of the drive that's introduced these changes. What do you think is the most significant change that you've been a part of, that you've personally influenced in the game of hockey?
Well, I think when the interchange rule came in, we embraced it in our team. We started to play with 16 instead of 11 and some substitutes. We did that right from the beginning. And that increased the depth of our squad. It made more people believe. We gave opportunity to people. We built it, and we embraced interchange. And that's been a big shift in the game. And I think that now everybody does it. But even when I first started with the men, we weren't doing it in a way that was as convincing as we are now. So I think that that took a long time to seep into the game for some teams, and other teams embraced it quicker. That's been a significant change. I think offside changed things too. Made in some ways the game more defensive, and even though teams have continued to score as they did before they changed, most people thought offside would make it more attacking. I don't think it's done that. It made it more defensive. Now defend with everybody. The only thing that saved the game is that they allowed you to hit one the reverse with the edge. If that hadn't happened, half the goals being scored, there'd only be half as many goals. If that change hadn't also seeped into the game. At the same time, it was with everybody back there, it's still damn hard to get through.
I'm not trying to write your obituary now, but as far as hockey's concerned, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I mean, I always wanted us to be true to our nature in the way we played. I think as Australians we're pretty assertive and aggressive about the way we play. We want to make goals, and the joy and the excitement in hockey comes from making a goal. Yes, you have to be good at defending, and we're pretty good at limiting the other team's opportunities, but I think someone who always that was our first aim was to make as many goals as we can, and in order to do that you've got to make as many chances, you've got to take risks. Sometimes you've got to take a risk in order to score, that can mean you score against. And I was always willing to do that, and I thought that's the way the game ought to be played. So, and this was a game which was about skill and speed, and I still object to the corners. I think it gives too much emphasis to the very narrow quote of skill in the game, and therefore it unbalances the game a little bit. That's unfortunate. But I think it can be very dangerous too. I want the game to be safe, simple, and skillful.
Okay. Rick Charlesworth, you are the coach. Good luck with the rest of your career, and let's hope you finish on a very high note. Thank you. Will be remembered in hockey.
Oh, well, if we go back to when he used to play, and I remember playing the end of my career with him, he was a very unique player. He had skills that were that no one else in the world at that point had, and he could throw a beautiful ball. He had skills to beat people, so he's a very, very good player, probably the world's best in those days, certainly. Then he took the road with the women, the Hockeyroos. He took them, 2 gold medals, pretty much, everything they had, they won, and I think he started that perfectionist attitude to his coaching. Worked through all the things that he needed to do.
He brought the hockey that other coaches maybe haven't brought.
Oh, look, he thinks outside the square. I don't think he. When I first came on board with him, I always used to talk about width and structure and all that, and he would almost debunk all those theories. And you don't necessarily have to have width for width's sake, and structure can be played against, and technically. It's easy to play against someone who has a lot of structure, so there's some positives and negatives to those things. But he's always thinking, he's always reading, and I think that's probably one of the things that keeps him contemporary and modern. Is that you're always looking for different areas of the game to improve, from different sports, from different parts of business, from whatever. So I think that's probably the thing that sets him apart. And I think that at the end of the day, the players know that he has a huge respect for them.
What's Rick brought to the game?
Oh, absolutely. You've always got innovative ideas. He always looks at 1%ers, stuff that no one else really looks at. He's really changed a lot with the changing stuff. He works well with the team, and he really creates a competitive training environment and playing environment. And you can see with such a great depth squad that he's developed. It's quite difficult, but that's good at the same time.
If you could sum Rick Charlesworth up, the essence of Rick Charlesworth, a word or a sentence or a phrase, what would it be?
Never switches off. It's go the whole time.
Thanks.
I remember back to the days when Rick was still playing. He and the Australians brought out a video, so I was able to watch that, and obviously we all had nothing in South Africa to work towards, so that was great to have. And from that day onwards, and I would obviously come into contact with him when he's been coaching, and in between he's had stints with the media and commentating. He's been a different person, definitely. He's got his own ways. I know his head's in the right place. It's what's good for hockey, and what's been good for Australian hockey, and that is the results of his inputs and his dedication to Australian hockey is visible for everyone to see. He's very successful with the women's side, and I think he's done likewise with the men's side. So as an all-round person, I think he's been great for hockey worldwide.
Okay, he's not one of those coaches who comes into the press room after a game and when asked about a comment on the umpire, he says, "Oh, no comment." He's not that kind of person. He will tell you, I think the umpiring was wrong. Is that his right approach?
Yeah, it's the right approach if you're 100% sure that you're right.
And I don't think, in my personal opinion, I don't think any of the yellow cards was a yellow card. And so that's the crowd and the noise, and the umpires should be better than that.
Often we as umpires and as individuals probably agree to disagree with Rick, but that's the kind of guy he is. And I think after the time we could always get together and talk about incidents that occurred in the game or that have come about. I mean, he's really a taskmaster, thinking way ahead of everyone else and thinking out the box, as they like to say. So yeah, from that perspective, and I think Rick has matured over time as well. To accept when he's wrong, and we as individuals, as umpires, need to accept when we're wrong as well. Otherwise, we're never going to take the game forward. So
yes. Yeah, I think it'll be a great loss. I don't know whether he'll have anything further to do with hockey in the future. He's certainly been a big influence on the game, and I think the whole hockey family wishes him well.
Absolutely. I mean, he's definitely had a major impact on the game, major impact on Australian hockey. In all spheres, and wherever he's gone. I mean, I know he's been involved in India in particular as well. So I'm sure he'll still be around. I think he's got a lot still to contribute, and yeah, he's been very successful both as a player and now as a coach in various spheres that he's been involved in.
What's unique about Ric Charlesworth?
I guess I've been fortunate enough to work with him. Someone who I've respected and admired from afar for so long, and to have the ability to work alongside him has just been a dream come true. If you're talking about world-class coaches in any sport, he would be right up the top on a global scale. He's influenced so much of what's happened in Australia, but also globally in the game of hockey and probably more other sports as well. Certainly in Australia, in the AFL, he's had an impact on as well as cricket. I think for New Zealand, but also in Australia as well.
Okay, what sort of innovations has he driven?
Well, certainly from what I understand, the ability to interchange. He was one of the pioneers in making sure that it wasn't a first 11, it was a first 16, or now a first 18. And that's changed the game completely. Every team doing what he has basically brought into the game, and whilst there were many people who were sort of pushing it aside, it's certainly crept in, and everyone understands that if you're going to compete with the best, which the Hockeyroos were, and certainly with the way we have been playing the Kookaburras now, that you need to be able to play 70 minutes at a very high intensity.
Rick is a very focused individual. How does he maintain that focus year after year, decade after decade, in your opinion?
Yeah, very difficult to answer. I mean, he's such a competitor in everything he does, whether it be tying shoelaces in time, whatever it is, he will find a way to make it competitive, and he drives people to be the best they can be, and you know, not just in sport, but in everything they do. And all you have to do is look at his kids and to see how successful they are in life, and his family. And so I think he brings people along with him. And there are sacrifices that need to be made to do that, but he seems to be able to make you find a way to push yourself further than you've ever been before. And I think that's the greatest attribute that he has, is to be able to push people to maximise what they have, and to sort of reach the potential that he perhaps sees in them.
Okay, if you could sum up the essence of Ric Charlesworth, how would you do that?
I think he's the ultimate competitor.
Yeah.
You know, win, lose or draw, you will know that you've been in a battle with him, and generally, if it lasts long enough, he will win.
You've been around Rick for some time. Can you give me some insight from a coach's perspective as to the man and the coach himself? What interactions have you had?
For me, Ric Charlesworth was my example. I wrote all his books, and before my time, he was the coach of Australia. And
yes.
When I was coach of the Dutch women team, we played against each other, and I learned a lot. He won everything in my first period of coaching, and then he stopped. We were lucky that he stopped. Then we took over the first place from Australia. But now again, against the men Australian team, we have to beat him again, and it's really difficult because, well, I think he's the best coach that ever been in Australia. And, he shows that it's not only women or men, it's the same. It's all has to do with performance, all has to do with coaching, and motivating people is the same for women and men.
Yes.
And I think he's a big example, and I'm happy he retired, because then hopefully the next period is for us.
My brothers, thank you very much.
Rick was one of the best players in the world in those days. Fantastic player, winner, as we say in Dutch. He was a player with a lot of skills. In fact, he was the ideal hockey player. As a player, technically, physically, mentally, he was a big player.
Me gustaría dar las gracias a Richard por todo lo que ha dado al hockey en su larga carrera, antes como jugador y ahora como coach. Muchas gracias, Richard.
I want to say thanks to Rich for your performance on the hockey in the life and your coaching career.
Thank you very much. I appreciate there's 5 more games for us, and maybe we play in the final. The rest of it, and I'm happy to be finishing. I feel satisfied with my involvement. It's been a long run, but very satisfied. But it's a way of doing it.